All right, so I'm going to call this meeting to order again at 7:01 p.m. And if we could all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. The Pledge of Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So we're all good, Jason, with Zoom? We're all good with Zoom and everything?
Yeah, recording and things on the screen.
All right, sounds good. All right, attendance, appointment of alternates. We are all here, so there is no need. And so if you do want to speak in public participation, if you could just sign in, put your name on the paper up front. And first is Randy Wright.
Randy Reichley, Board of Education Chair, 27 Harrington Road. Good evening. For the past several months, Dr. Tutorin, the Board of Education, administration, and staff developed a budget that adequately reflects what we need to educate our students. We carefully built the budget in a way that is cost efficient, mindful to taxpayers, and meets the needs, not our wants. We scrutinized over the financials and eliminated waste and combined positions. The decisions we made allow us to continue to align with our strategic plan and portrait the graduate. The budget was also prepared to provide our students and their families with educational services while also providing our staff with resources necessary to promote growth and achievement within our district. Monday evening, the Board of Finance rejected our proposed budget and reduced it to a 1.25 increase over FY22. This will have a detrimental impact on the progress we have made in recent years and set the school system up for financial failure in the future. Your increase would create a deficit for the coming year. So not only would we start underfunded, we would be forced to cut 6 positions and services would be pushed back. And any gains that we had made in the past may be lost. Our contractual salary obligations reflect an overall average increase of 4%. This increase includes the high school business teacher and Broadbrook STEM teacher. Without these 2 positions, it's an average of a 3.1% from FY22. In addition, our budget reflects a 5% increase for health insurance, but correspondence from our provider states that it could be as high as 8%. These 2 factors alone would make up the majority of your proposed 1.25 increase. I urge you to reconsider and rescind your vote and approve the proposed budget for FY23. Thank you.
Thank you. Heather Spencer.
Heather Spencer, 60 Ridgeway. I stand before you tonight, first and foremost, as a taxpayer, in addition to a parent of an East Windsor graduate. I moved into town in 2009 and fell in love with its surroundings. It's a tight-knit community that can pull together when needed in spite of an occasional political issue. We are a fortunate group. In my years prior to being a Board of Ed member, I've witnessed the yearly budget debates from the sidelines. There have been a lot of concerns with some valuable reasons. But what I have witnessed firsthand as being a parent of a student in our town schools is that we have wonderful teachers, administrators, paras, guidance counselors, custodians, cafeteria workers, and coaches, to name a few. And the thing that I've seen consistently is the impact that they made on my son's life, despite the years when our budget was severely cut. They came to work and continued to care for all our children. Now, as a Board of Ed member, I see the other side. And unfortunately, I'm witnessing the rippling effect of a challenging audit. I respect your concerns. You all have voiced. However, I have the utmost faith in our superintendent and how he and his team developed this budget. I'm extremely concerned that some believe that cutting this budget will somehow prove that extra money is there. I ask you to please reconsider and share in my faith that we are all in a better place. I don't want to get into the specifics, but I hope you can think of our students. The achievements that they've been able to make this past year alone are fantastic. Those additional supports are hinging on this budget. Please be open to discussing these in terms of the students and what they will lose. I'd like to request one last thing. Please consider having a Board of Ed liaison. I think overall, it will help us with future year budgets. I promise you, it will make a difference in your perception. Thank you.
Brittany Severino.
Courtney Severino, 16 Rockville Road. Our new superintendent, Patrick, I believe, has been more than transparent in our findings and has done everything to answer all the questions to the best of his ability. And I believe that the budget that he's presented is detailed and everything that is in it is necessary. Contractual would be a much needed improvement to our school district for the kids. This 1.25% increase is only hurting our students, staff, administration, and community. In just the past few months and years, I've seen gains and have had the opportunity for hope, the hope for a better curriculum, offerings, and opportunities. The money that was not spent last year was greatly due to the unpredictability of COVID, with things such as no late buses being used, school sports not being used, substitutes, tuitions, and even basic utilities were all contributors. It's not new news that the school has dealt with many years with a 2% increase, and it shows. In 2012, 10 years ago, my son went to a school where he could learn to play an instrument in elementary school, a language in the middle school, and after school activities were thriving. 3 short years later, none of these were offered for my other son happening. We are starting to rebuild, and the administration we have has heart and drive, but can't do this without the support of the town and community. To me, this 1.25% is horrifying and only sets up our new team for failure. Thank you.
Marie D'Souza.
I'm sorry to get up in front of you again today, but having been here at the last meeting and have read online various things this morning, I want to commend the Board of Finance for taking their job seriously and being concerned about the students in town moving forward, and also doing your fiduciary duty to make sure that whatever budget you put forth tonight for the Board of Ed is one that will be able to be accepted by both sides, those for and those against. But going through the budget again today myself, looking at things, I'm concerned after I heard that they've already, without having a Board of Education meeting with the entire board, but they're looking to reduce 6 positions. I don't know what those positions are, but the business office, when I read, and my understanding of what I read, is that the business office changes are going to be funded by $100,000 out of the special education budget because of the reduced students. They're going to move the cafeteria employee that is no longer there. That money was going to be rolled over, and it's going to be more or less a wash. So, and then one of the 3 positions that I alluded to at the last meeting, one for the tag teacher at the middle school is a funded position for 2022 and 2023. Although having had a daughter previously in that program, I find it to be an excellent program. But if it's only going to be funded with the grant money for two years, well, actually a year, where are we going to go after that? So that's a concern for me, whether or not if we start it again, are we going to be able to maintain it moving forward? And I know the comment was something to the effect, and I don't have the exact verbiage, was to try to keep students within house. But unfortunately, we're never going to catch up to where some of these satellite locations for schooling is, because they're specific to individual needs. But it's a good idea. So I would take a look at that. With that said, the debate that went back and forth, I think you need to take a little bit more time and look at exactly what has been added, what's going to be removed going forward, and what we can do based upon. And I know it's not your fault because numbers have been skewed in the past because of a lot of things that are none of my business, but are being worked on and straightened out with collaborative efforts in town, and I appreciate those people. I'm not criticizing anybody on the Board of Education that has worked hard and believe what they've been told over the years that they've sit on the board, because apparently they haven't been told quite everything that they needed to be told, and that's through no fault of their own. But moving forward, I'm sure things are going to change for us, but this year we're in a tough position because we're trying to compare the budget against previous budgets, and we know they're no good to compare against. So take a hard look at it. I think your number is a little bit low, based upon what they put in and based upon the fact that they do want to put in 2 new teachers besides the STEM one. They are trying to regroup and look at what they're spending their money on to try to reduce some things. But I'm in the same dilemma you are. I look at the audit report and I don't ever want to have a repeat of that. 2 years in a row is more than enough for me as a resident of this town. So I commend you guys for what you're doing. I'm sorry you're in this predicament, but try to do the right thing so that everybody can live with it. Thank you.
Francis Neal.
Francis Neal, 153 Melrose Road. I don't know if you need that, but Dr. Tudrin was hired to work in East Windsor, and when he agreed to the job, he had no idea what was ahead of him. He found out that the previous administration had created problems and mismanaged a few things, apparently, where funds weren't tracked properly and accounts weren't. Apologize, brain's gone. Funds weren't tracked properly and things weren't put into the correct accounts, and it was basically a mess that he walked into. He had no idea that this would be put on his plate. But everything that he did find out, he came and he brought to you. And he told you all everything honestly, presented it to you in a timely and forthright fashion. He took immediate steps to fix all of the troubles and all of the issues. He fired the business management company that had caused so much of the issue. He hired staff in-house to create a sound and correct business office that will follow accounting standards. We will have financial checks and balances and proper in-house oversight. He's answered all of your questions quickly and thoroughly. When he created his first budget for the 2022-2023 year, we created that in an open, honest, and transparent fashion, cost center by cost center, just like all of the rest of the town departments. Several of you have been involved in the creation of the Board of Education budget, and so you are intimately aware of the granularity of the process. You have all praised Dr. Tudrin for the transparency of his proposed budget and the level of detail and the ease of reading his presentation and his budget. He has proven himself to be an honest team player. He is looking out for the best interests of all the students in East Windsor School District, as well as the taxpayers in the town of East Windsor. You should give him the benefit of the doubt and support his budget. Thank you.
Right. Was there anybody that came in after that wanted to sign up to speak, or? Nobody? Okay, just want to make sure. So that's the end of public participation. We'll move into our budget workshop. So So a couple of us put some of our thoughts together, and I just looked at mine and it's really long. And I think part of me wants to go through it, but I don't want a history because this, to me, this has nothing to do, I mean, with Dr. Tudrin. So I think I am going to read my thing because a lot of this, and nobody wants to look at history, but we have to look at history because you need history to build the future and to see where you were to go forward. So that I don't mess up, I'm going to read mine too instead of trying to do it off the cuff. So to start with, I would like to put to rest some false accusations regarding this board. This board does not have a vendetta against the BOE, or have we ever wanted to do anything in our power to see the BOE fail. This is completely ridiculous accusation, as can be proven by how many times last year we asked the BOE to address the financial discrepancies we were seeing develop over the year and thought could pose a problem for them. Unfortunately, this request was never answered, and then numerous errors were therefore discovered in the audit. This board's job is the managing of the finances for the town of East Windsor. Our job on this board is black and white. It is the numbers, not the emotions. We are responsible to all the taxpayers of the town of East Windsor, and our job is to be fiscally responsible. The facts when it comes to the BOE and the budget this year needs a quick history recap, which I'll try to make it quick. 2020, the audit uncovered two major issues that resulted in 2 corrective action plans having to be filed with the state. 2021, the audit uncovered 5 major issues that resulted in 5 corrective action plans having to be filed with the state. 2 of those action plans were the same 2 from 2020 that were never corrected. Also during the audit, it was discovered that the final adjusted expenditure surplus was $1.5,252,000, not the $23,146 the BOE originally reported. This resulted in the $1.1 million having to be returned to the general fund. That money was given back to the BOE in their budget to be spent on the schools. No one wanted to see that money come back to the general fund. It was there to be spent, but was not. 2022, thankfully, there is a new superintendent working very hard to correct the years of mismanagement, and it has not been easy for him, and we greatly appreciate everything he has done so far and everything he plans to do going forward. The new office staff at the BOE and the town financial staff are working together to try and correct and update the year 2022 that we are working in so that it is clear where this year stands. They are very close, but not there yet. The unfortunate part is that due to all these issues, there is not the historical data that is correct so that a true and accurate budget can be produced. We have created a chart that is broad, which I'll share with anybody if they'd like to see, but accurate and can show the BOE budgetary trends. We understand the frustration that everyone feels and that everyone believes that more money can usually fix everything, but it can't. And that has been proven in the prior years and the chart. Also has been done in years before. If there ever is a problem with finances and money, the BOE has come before this board numerous times and been granted numerous needed funds during the fiscal year if warranted. The BOE Board of Finance also created a 2% fund that allowed the BOE to roll almost $500,000 of their unused money from the year 1920 into a fund that they can use at any time if needed. That is what brings us here today. Anybody else?
I have,
Or anybody else want to get into it?
no, I have some, just a comment that, as a person sits here to put, $2 to the East Windsor School, one's still there for another few months anyway. And I've made promise to the board, in fact, I have absolutely no issues with the teachers and the Board of Education. My daughters have had great education in this town. Matter of fact, one of them went to a high school in a different town for a program. And when she got there, she says, "Dad, I am so far ahead of the kids in these other towns." And that's a tribute to the teachers in this town and what the board has done. Geraldine said a lot. Patrick's done a great job since he got there. He's, in my opinion, taken a great step towards correcting the biggest problem that we've had in the finances of the year with the Board of Education. And I think he's taken a great step in that direction. That being said, in reviewing his budget, I still have some questions that make me feel that there's money that can be taken from the budget. And I think there's some things that I still hung up on a couple of things, and I'll just ask those questions now. And I don't care if a board member answers it. I see Patrick's here. There's other members of the school, the system here as well. So I asked a question the other night about the salaries, and Patrick was right. He's about 70%. My calculations are at 71.8% of the budget is salaries and benefits. And it's a 10.1% increase since the final year we have actual numbers of 2021. I don't have a problem with that. It's in line, it's reasonable for what he told me the increase was. and the increase in benefits. There's no issues with that. Line by line, you look at the budget for the high school, the middle school, the Broadbrook Elementary School, there's minimal increases there. It's contractual increases. I have no problems with that. I think it's fine. The stipends for the, athletics and all that. It's a reasonable budget. I start to get in the areas where I start asking questions. One of them is transportation services, and it's up 23% from the actual 2021. Going into this year, it's probably reasonable because I know fuel's gonna be expensive. Part of those years, buses weren't running full time because of COVID and whatever. So 23%, it's reasonable. I'm not gonna dwell on that one. I look at special education. There's where some of my questions start to arise. And I'll just, like I said, I'll throw them out there and just, this is where I'm coming from. And if someone wants to answer the questions, it's fine. If not, we can make our decisions on what we want to do. I did notice, and I don't know if that's right here. Oops, that's the wrong one, sorry. Second, looking at the numbers, this is from the budget booklet that was presented to us from the Board of Ed. Nurses, it looks like we've added 3 nurses, but I realized later that those were moved from the health section over, correct?
Correct. So
Okay.
those are one-to-one nurses
One-to-one.
that fulfill special ed needs. So
So-
they used to be reported under nursing and health services, and now they're being reported in special education. That's why they're being employed,
Yeah.
is because of the special.
That's fine, and you mentioned that, and I discounted that in my, once I started reading it, I discounted on my calculations. It does look like there's 4 new positions in there, and a facilitator, a pathologist, and some others that I don't know that were moved from other parts of the budget.
So I can tell you, we have no increase in the number of speech pathologists or any related services. The difference is that all those positions are building-based. Past years, those will have been reported in the respective buildings that they work in. To provide like additional clarity as far as like the need for those services, they've been shifted into the special ed department. So let's say we have so at the middle school, I believe there's 7 special ed teachers. Those salaries in past years would have been reported in the middle school department. This year, those are all being reported in special education. It's basically the need that drives for that staff member is from that area. So there's a significant increase as far as staffing in that department because we pulled from. So salaries at each of the buildings would be higher had we kept them there.
So that would, so if they were there, again, because they were pulled out and I'm looking at, not, never mind, it's including my salaries, okay, so it's still part of my 10%.
So
That's salary,
even,
that's,
yeah, even though you saw a mild increase in salaries, those salary increases would be more significant in the buildings.
so, all right. And that, then, does that also include, and this is where the biggest area is in special education, it's, and I had my number here somewhere. It's in the non-certified staff between all 3 of the schools, and it's well over, if I'm not mistaken. Broadbrook School, from the last actual year, we had actual numbers. The non-certified staff went from $450,000 to $918,000, which is more than double. And East Windsor Middle School non-certified staff went from 110 to 603, and East Windsor High School non-certified staff went from 144 to 585. From 2021 actual to your budget for 2023 proposed.
Is that building based or are you talking about?
That is special education, but that's, like I said, you have an actual number in there from 2021, so I'm assuming you moved that from where it was in 2021 budget.
Correct. So non-certified, we did the same thing. So non-certified, refers to any staff member that is essentially non-administrator and non-teacher. So that would be paraprofessionals or special ed. So it could be behavior support staff. And so same thing, like we have a number of paraprofessionals at Broadbrook that used to be reported at Broadbrook. Those are now being reported in the special ed department because they're servicing a special ed need. I don't know if I understood the question.
Yeah, so, and that's so my next follows up my next question. So in 2022, and again, maybe this is just, maybe you're just starting to move things to do the budget to line things up. Because Broadbrook School, this number went down from 2021 to 2022. I'm just picking up just looking at non-certified staff in Broadbrook School. And I'm just trying to follow the process and trying to find, You know, maybe we're wrong on our side, you know, I'm just trying to follow the numbers and make sense of them, and again, these are just more in-depth questions than what I've asked, some of us have asked. Broadbrook School non-certified staff, and 2021 actual number is $450,000. 2022 adopted budget was for $1.2 million, and again, this is all in their special education line, not by the school. So I guess maybe they were moved, and now it's down to 918. So I see the numbers are fluctuating. Maybe they follow the students between Broadbrook School to the middle school to the high school. I
So
understand.
that will happen if the student, let's say,
Yeah.
has one paraprofessional, they go from fourth grade to fifth grade, they will travel to buildings, so those numbers can fluctuate based on need. The other factor is like our special ed private placements are at an all-time low. I would have stated that. Typically, that means if you're including the kids in the district and you're not outplacing them, you are staffing them in district. It is a cost savers because an outplacement with transportation and the cost of the tuition for the placement averages probably about 150,000. It doesn't cost 150,000 if you're staffing it in-house and you have the appropriate program in place. There is like there's an effect as far as the in-district cost, or overall cost of savings by keeping them in district. The benefits essentially all kids.
So you answer my question, but basically saying these people that are on staff were basically in the schools before, and now they're separated out to special education.
Correct.
So again, so then basically now looking at the numbers for the school, if I move these, you know, like I said, I'm looking at Broadbrook School where we moved from 2021, our last actual numbers. I'm not even looking at 2022 to now.
When you say, just for my own clarity, when you say numbers, are you talking about like the FTEs as far as full-time employees, or are you talking about like the actual amount allocated?
Well,
for
on the
salary?
report you gave me, there's no actual
No,
number.
because that, I was going to say that this is the first year we're recording
Reporting, yeah.
FTE, so there wouldn't be a comparison. So when you're talking, so I think I'm understanding correctly now. So you're comparing the salaries.
The salary line, the dollar amount.
So if I take this current projected year for salaries, we were under budgeted by something approximately 557,000 based on what we're projected to spend this year. So those are two different numbers. If you look at what we are budgeted this year to what's proposed in the Board of Ed proposal, the increase in salaries, I think, came out to 7.4%. However, if you look at what we're on point to spend, which I think at this point, salaries have hit 12 million. So that's how much we have like spent. It's just under 12 million. What we're projected as far as salaries for the year is at 4%, and that includes the two positions. Now, if you take those two positions out, the increase is 3.1. I don't know if that provides.
Yeah, I see where you're going from. All right, my last one, and this is where my biggest questions are really. It has really nothing to do with the actual physical parts where the kids are educated themselves at the schools. It hits on the district-wide administration side.
Yeah.
And as long as I can open the right page here, I thought I had it marked. Okay, so. Looking, and again, I know you've done some things, but I'm gonna start with professional services, and that's where TMS fell under. Correct, okay. So in 2021, the actual amount spent in that whole category for everything that falls under that, substitutes, contracts, services, the whole 9 yards, was $813,000. You looking for something?
Yeah, give it a package. I'll be honest, I'm a visual person. Thanks, Betsy. Thank you.
36.
Page 36. Okay. So that number was 813. Last year it was budgeted at 758, and now.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Bill. I'm sorry, Mr. Simon, I'm just catching up.
That's right, you can do my first name.
I'm on page 36.
Page 36, yeah.
Yeah, and where are you?
So page 36, I'm looking at professional services to start with.
Okay,
You went from 813 to 808. I know TMS came out, you got more money budgeted in there for substitutes, looks like 90-some thousand dollars more. They were, again, you were spending 300 and some thousand, 100,000, 200,000 on TMS. I don't know what that number is. So if they're gone, I would expect to see that a bigger number decrease in that. This is where I'm coming from making my budget, where it's at. I know you mentioned before that they were under budgeted, but still I don't see where they came out as a budgeted number in this category somewhere, because they were under contract. What line were they actually under in this budget?
So this would be, they're included under. I believe it was the contractual that they were under. So that's where you see. So I went look under the adopted because under the adopted, we were under budget, like we didn't budget enough for that line. So like I could tell you that 301 for the current school year, we are projected closer to 390 for this current year. Now that was with obviously not being responsible for EMS's contracts for the entire year. If you look, you're right, it's not a, so if you look at what was actually spent in 2021, the 451, basically almost 452 thousand to what is in proposed as the 353. It's about just under $100,000 difference. The reason why it's not a complete wash is because we had to allocate additional funds because it's noted in the audit. We have an IRS issue, and I don't know if anyone's worked with IRS, but as far as correspondence, you send something in October. I found out in March because that's how it's working right now. That we've allocated 45,000 in that line as far as payment. That's still with that issue. Is it possible that it could be added this year? It is. It's not looking that way. So to make sure that we were budgeting for the IRS, that's in there. And then the other thing that's on that line is additional training with Munis through Pilot Technologies. So certainly with the new business office, certainly we're going to have a new HR director. It was important that we felt like that we put adequate training in Munis, not knowing exactly who that team is. I mean, certainly we're very happy to have Ryan Galloway, although this is his first meeting, so he may be running after this. I don't know. But between the IRS and the Munis training, that's why it's not an even wash. We didn't allocate that, but that number would have been up regardless.
And coming down to my last group here, and then I'll let someone else ask their questions or whatever. I do see under the salary section of the district administration that there's 4 positions added, which I assume is for the business office, and that's a total of $270,000. I have
Sorry,
up
this
on
is still 36.
page 30, still on page 36, yeah, towards the top. It looks like HR staff and business staff. There's 2 and 2, and it comes to $270,061 for the 4 spots towards the top.
Yeah.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah,
Would
it
you-
really should be 1 and 3, honestly. but-
It's all right. The number is just a dollar amount. I don't care about numbers. I care about, the number of staff is the dollar amount.
Yeah, the dollar amount's accurate, but.
Okay.
Yep.
So when I look at what was adopted in the actual number from 21 and the adopted number in that salaries for the administration, we went from 935 and 21 to 1.7 budgeted this year and 848 and 22. It's over 100% increase when I back from which was adopted in 22. When I back out the 4 new positions you put in there, it's still a 70% increase in staff salaries under district administration.
Nope, I see it. I mean, I can tell you, I'd have to research it, but based on what we've done, I'm inclined to say that we've moved and reallocated multiple things that used to be in various departments, and it's because we've shifted.
Okay.
Certainly, obviously, I know you're coming to a vote today. I don't know if I could get, I won't get that.
No, it's all right. But basically,
Yep.
again, just looking at the way things move, like,
Yep.
and when I go back and look at some of the numbers, like if I just flip back to one of the schools. And let's see which one comes up here first. I'm gonna flip the page. So page 11 is the high school. So if some of these positions move from the high school to special ed or to the district office.
Yep.
The salary line in the high school, again, and I know there's increases there and whatnot. It's gone up still a fair amount. And when I add those other, if I move them back out, I'm still coming up with a large salary increase somewhere. Moving things around. I mean, maybe it's just positions aren't lining up to me or something. Maybe I don't know what I'm missing, but there's just, it seems like, the schools are moving up in a logical way and what's increasing, but yet somewhere else in the budget, we're hitting big increases in salaries.
Yeah, I would tell you the salaries at the schools would reflect a much higher increase as they remain there. So you would have seen without adding any positions. I can tell you within certain salaries and the way, I'll use the teacher's pay scale, for example. There's, I believe there's 16 steps. If you take, because I did this the other day, I think it was Monday, we were here, I was doing the math on my phone. If you take step 1 from this year and look at step 2 for next year, so we get the step increase in their GWI increase, it's about 4%. You go to top step, it's 5%. In between, some of those increases are even larger. So that number, you would anticipate that number to be larger.
Right. That's the last one. I mentioned.
Yeah, and just to go back to some of the larger increases, because I'm looking at the numbers now. So district stipends went from 47,000 to actual to 193. I can tell you, we did put in, they're called PLC leader positions. We had those positions in past year's budget. I can tell you they're teacher leader positions within various departments. They help facilitate and assist with curriculum. We haven't had those in the last 2 years. Those were cut. I can tell you, walking in, I'm in the buildings on a weekly basis. One of the things that have been vastly missing is our ability to have the capacity to grow teacher leadership. And thus, the domino effect by not having those positions, and again, this is from my perspective, is that we've created a top-down structure between our administrators and teachers. And by having those positions, one, we're able to do a lot more for curriculum instruction by having those teacher leaders. And then we're also having the capacity within to grow, which I think is vastly needed, especially coming from the pandemic and being home, transitioning into back to traditional school. The other thing is, I look, there's a large increase you can see with long-term subs because there's the option to work from home. There's a reduced need. If you that number is more reflective of past years pre-pandemic. Technology, I can tell you, technology has increased because of another thing, because of the pandemic. It's not so much we've increased our staff. What's happening there is our staff is leaving. We're doing all the work to take someone that maybe is a little green. We train them, and then they basically outgrown their value at that salary, and then they leave us for other jobs that can getting more than essentially school district. So with technology and nursing, we have raised our salaries as well to be competitive, not to lose that staff. So going through, there are reasons why those numbers are high.
No, it's fine. I appreciate your answers. And like I said, it's just looking through the numbers and.
Yeah,
once
no,
again, I heard it.
I'll tell you, we have completely reorganized it, but it was to add clarity. I mean, this is really year 1. Next year, when I do this, granted, I'm still making it by that time. It will have projections and trends that will be very important.
And that's such as something that, I've mentioned before, I appreciate the way you presented this to me. And, like I said, going forward, I hope we have the numbers that we can follow in a much more uniform fashion than the way it was presented in the past. And
Bill, do you mind if I speak? I didn't sign up.
like,
You want me to sign up?
You're on the BOE, right?
Yes.
Okay, so go ahead, because public participation's over,
okay.
so that you're.
So
part of the
I
BOE, so
just
go ahead.
want to say that there's an important point that Patrick talked about. And I think it bears really considering. And that is that time that he talked about in developing leadership and capacity in each of the schools. So that's a visionary thing that I'm thinking about. on the part of the superintendent. Building capacity in the schools and leadership is retain staff in the schools and it will continue to kind of grow. So if you bring someone in, like even a consultant for a little bit, but you have people meeting and learning and discussing, they take those skills and then it goes throughout the whole school. That is a really important, I think it's an important aspect of what was built in right now. And as an educator, I know what it takes to know to have, for one person to hear something, that's okay. It affects your classroom. Working in a team, it affects the school as a whole. And so, you know, that again, I commend that in terms of visionary approaches to what we would be looking at for East Windsor and the East Windsor school system. I'm Betsy Boris, by the way.
No, I'm done. I said, those my questions that I had, just digging through the numbers one more time.
I'll go. Okay, so, I just, part of why, I voted the way that I did, so coming from the board, coming into this and also having a child, I've got a child in the middle school in Smithfield. But coming into this, we had a discussion, I think, when our first meeting here, like, what are your plans going into budget? And I said, I'm just gonna vote to approve it, because I know that the work that goes into these budgets, I've been a part of those discussions, and I know how hard each school works to put into that. And then I sat through a few more meetings, and I just, with a good conscience, could not approve it as it stands, because it's not that money was returned, it's that we didn't know how much money was being returned, right? Like, sometimes we get back money, and okay, yeah, this is a pandemic that has the effects, I get that, but this wasn't that. We didn't know the money was there. And I appreciate that we're moving things, and I agree that next year it's gonna make more sense, and we're gonna be able to look back line by line, and we're gonna know where money was actually spent and where it wasn't. But we're not there this year, and I don't know that we can truly even say that we know where that money was spent last year. Or where it wasn't spent last year that it should have been. And as a parent, I'm disheartened that my kid lost out on $1.1 million of services last year. That's disheartening. And I want to see that back in the budget. I'm not confident that we're in a place yet that we can do that, right? Like, I would just hate to approve it as is and have money come back again, because we're still figuring things out. I would rather wait another year, get our footing, and then, approve next year for a larger increase if we need it. Or, if we need an added appropriation during the year. So that's just where I'm feeling, and it's true, I hope everyone knows, like, I truly want what's best for our schools and for our town. And, I'm just trying my best to do my due diligence.
Anybody else?
I think I'm gonna echo pretty much what everyone else said. The only thing is, I'll just add this. So I kind of was trying to figure this out. And forgive me if this math is completely wrong. So if you guys want to think this through and look at this, but I was looking at what the proposed amount of 25.4 mil based on this 1.25 increase. And so I subtracted out the salaries that I found in the packet here that you have on page 8 on the right-hand side. So if I'm reading this wrong, please let me know. So it says that your salaries are 17.6, let's say, mil. Is that not right? No, I said it sounds well. Okay, so I took that out to look at what this would look like. And then I basically did the same thing. So that's roughly, if you take salaries out of what we're proposing as the budget, it leaves about 7.7 or almost 7.8 in leftover money that's in the budget. That once you kind of account for all the salaries that you have to account for. Then I looked at what your proposal was and did the same thing, and that's 8.5. So the difference between the two is roughly $778,000. So here's my point, is that you were talking about how you have to potentially lay off 6 individuals from the district. If someone could explain what are we then, by keeping those staff, then what is the impact on that 778,000? So what are we losing on that side? That's the kind of conversation that I would like to have. And I don't think that we've really been able to have that conversation. So my point really is like, that's your difference. It's only about $700,000 and change.
I still haven't accounted for the 3.9 that you're putting in for grants. So, you're already talking about laying people
Well, the
off.
grants are separate, so the grants would add additional salaries to that 17.
Right, so what I'm saying is, I guess, Patrick, what I'm saying is that $778,000 worth of services or academics programming that you would be doing. So if you can make the argument to say that here's what that would then cover, I think that would probably be a different
Yeah,
conversation.
I mean,
that we
I
could
can
have.
answer your question though. So I mean, we
Yeah.
certainly have our fixed costs and I mean, obviously you have utility fixed costs, variable costs, but costs you have to pay. We have additional special ed costs that are certainly fixed and mandated. But then the other part of that is like curriculum instruction and assessment. I'll tell you, I've been on record stating this at Board of Ed meetings as well as historically, we've always maintained people. Which certainly, I mean, that's the driving force of our organization. But to the point where it's getting pretty close to being detrimental in the sense that we eliminated in past years where there's $0 allocated to professional development. There's very little money allocated to resources. Again, I'm in the buildings on a weekly basis. I'll go into a number of language arts classrooms where the materials for classroom libraries, as far as the books needed for kids to push their reading, are equitable as far as variety, levels, condition across the board. And we're to the point where we can no longer eliminate that. Like our teachers need the tools to teach, our kids need the materials to learn. And so something has to give. So it's either going to be that or staff. We're really at the point that the teachers need the tools. And unfortunately, the result is if you're 70% salary and you're cutting 700,000 from the proposed budget, there will be jobs. I'll tell you the number 5 or 6 they come from me. I can tell you there's been no conversations regarding like whose those positions are. So, but just based on that, that number has been thrown out, and I'll take onus for that. But there's certainly been no conversation saying like it's going to be like those positions. I'll tell you that we have an administrative leadership meeting tomorrow, knowing that this meeting was today to look at what would be proposed to the Board of Ed. Certainly, if there's any staff member that was part of that would impact, those would be individual conversations with myself and them. So anyone that would hear first would be that staff member, certainly not the public, and that's certainly within any circles. So, also just to clarify that as well.
So I guess the only thing I'm just gonna say, and I'll just end it with this, is that when I look at that number and I look at how much was returned, it's, to me, this is where I'm coming from, is that if it's 1.5 that's coming back, I don't know, I guess I just don't quite. I feel as if what we're doing is, if anything, we're just trying to account for.
Yeah, I guess, maybe a good question then is, of the money that was returned, where should it have been spent?
Right.
I mean, I'd be guessing. I have my.
That's the
assumptions.
problem, is we'd be
Yeah,
guessing,
but
right?
No, I've been clear on that.
No, and I
can't-
Yeah, and I know that, but I think that you've been very transparent, which is part of why that's where we are, right? Like, there is just so many unknowns. And that's where I'm also like, on this other side, like, I don't want us to jump to cutting staff, and I hope that as a board, we don't jump there, because I truly don't know that we need to. Right, like, that's where I'm sitting, like, I don't know that it's a need, right? Like, I don't know that you need to cut staff, that you may have the money that you need as it is.
I can tell you, I mean, we're projected to spend pretty much every dollar this year.
All right, so where do you want to go from here? You can revisit Board of Ed, you can move on to town, then come back to Board of Ed. You can leave Board of Ed because you've already made a motion on it, so you can go to town and then see where your final numbers sit. It's up to you guys where you'd like to start first.
We have some on town that we still have to.
You
Yes,
do.
we have 5 of them.
Five.
We start with town properties, even though it is green on your sheet, sorry. It was tabled on the other night.
Wherever you guys want to go.
I'm fine running through with finishing what we didn't do last time, the town side, closing that out.
So that was you. You had the questions. huh?
I just,
The first one was town properties that we skipped.
What did we skip?
So,
Town properties. It's in the public works section.
I see it. Okay.
It's green though, sorry. I wasn't paying attention.
That's all right. She just made it green, but we didn't make any changes. This wasn't approved yet, so.
Right, it hasn't been approved.
Okay, and Joe are here, so, yeah.
I just had some thoughts, but it's. I'll move that we approve town properties at $1,194,442.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion on that? When you come to the end, we can come back, so it's not like. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Next was.
Libraries.
All right, we have two different libraries.
Interesting.
You have Roberts Library, Warehouse Point Library.
Just so you know, this is my library.
I see that.
Okay.
I was trying to do a column change and I thought I fixed them all, but I missed that one.
Amy does the numbers. I do the words. You guys want to do them separately or together?
I should do them separate. So the first is Roberts Library. Does somebody want to make a motion for that? To make a motion to discuss, you can make one. Okay, so Tom, you're making a motion for which one? For 25,000. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, open for discussion. Well, that's not discussed.
I'm good with it as it is. So yeah, I don't have any issue with that.
Amy, can you- I think I would have asked a question when they brought it up. Do we typically, for payments, they pay more than this though, right?
Yes, their budget is actually like $35,000
Okay,
and we contribute 25 of it.
okay, thank you.
So now earlier on, Amy, we talked about them hiring somebody or putting somebody on and you were
Well,
concerned
they
about
have,
that.
well, they have a volunteer
Yep.
and in their 35,000 is paying that person,
Okay,
but they do not pay that person. And they would have to pay their own payroll taxes and do all this stuff to have that employee. They did just get their 501c3 with a different tax ID number, so now they're in a position that they could do that,
okay,
but the 25 is what they've asked for.
okay.
And they're spotting in their proposal, they're talking just an hourly rate. They're not talking the FICA stuff that goes with it or the other employment costs.
I just know you mentioned that earlier, so I just want to make sure we're good. All right, any other discussion? All right, all those in favor?
We didn't vote.
Oh, you-
You voted to discuss.
Roberts Library.
We just wanted to discuss.
We didn't
Oh,
make a
did you say
motion on
discuss?
it.
Yeah.
All right, so make the motion.
Make a motion to Robert Library for $25,000.
All right, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, motion passes. All right, now you're on to Warehouse Point Library.
Yeah, I make a motion that we accept the Warehouse Point Library budget at $299,750.
All right, is there a second? Any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
That motion passes. Now. Park and Rec.
Yep.
It's on Melissa Watkins, so you have Melissa and Daigle here.
Yes, I specifically asked Director Maltese to be here after last meeting, so I hope there's a question.
I think I saw you texted her right away. You want to take that back? All right, sorry.
Well, I think if it's down property, that was pretty.
Just wanted to see your face, Joe.
I filled it out and I hadn't, but I'm not sure if you make it happen. So I moved to approve it at
What was your
$333,579.
idea?
So,
Okay.
all right, so is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, so a couple things too that you had asked me to get, and I want to make sure I share with you guys, and I should have done it during Joe's town planning, but I forgot. Under DPW, they now have a grant for $750,000 for the Highland Avenue culvert.
Oh, you want to talk about the bond stuff?
Okay, well, you can do that. if you
Yeah,
want.
so in 2021, we received a $750,000 bond from the State Bond Commission for the replacement of the culvert on Highland Avenue, and another, I think, $560,000 for the spillway as part of East Windsor Park. We also did last week receive $800,000 for lights at Abbey Road, irrigation and site work at the East Windsor Park, and additional park improvements. We had submitted 4 requests to the bond commission for a total of 1.1 million or so a year ago. And we have 800,000 of that, so it's still somewhat unclear as to where the balance of that money will go, but they will go towards parks improvements that would not otherwise have been funded either in the general fund or in capital.
Was part of that the wells?
No.
Irrigation, yeah, irrigation's part of it.
Were you talking about the well at the community garden? Or are you talking about irrigation for the soccer fields on the back lot of the park?
Second,
Yes, that was what the request was for. I thought you were talking about the community garden.
no, not. the kindergarten. Right, so
Move to approve in second. So, in the section, we'll have discussion.
anything else? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
Show on your face.
Now,
Capital, yeah.
Wait a minute, you asked me to come once?
so were we all set in the revenue section?
Nope,
And it's-
capital's next,
Capital.
and then revenue.
Capital improvement, and I'll move capital improvement gets approved at $950,000.
Is there a second?
I second.
Hold on.
Each other. All right, any discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Maybe you also saw the lease purchase agreement. I don't know if you need to correct it. Steve was a lease purchase.
We're not going to have any Mises this year.
The lease purchase is all done.
No, I just didn't know if it was type. I don't know if it needs to be updated on the sheet.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Right, that's why I published it to the world.
Yeah.
So revenue, I think the best place to look is in your package from tonight. There's munis reports, and one of them is revenue. It starts with the fours. 105, 4 something. That's 3 pages. The first line says general fund town. It says town aid, it's all the state money. It's the first page. It doesn't say selectmen. If it says selectmen, you're looking at an expense report. No, you have the third one. That's only 2 pages. That's it, Tom. No, Tom, the one you just flipped is the one. That's it.
Up to the other one.
So what this gives you is 3 years of actual, current year actual, what we're budgeting for current year and next year's budget. And as you'll see, the first 2 sections are basically exactly the same. The state revenue is 6,349,659, with obviously the bulk of it being the ECS money, which is 5,482,136. Those are the numbers I got from CCM from the state budget as it currently sits. Then we have assessor, that's the same. Tax revenue is generated based off the grand list change. And treasurer stayed the same. Let's see. Yep, treasurer stayed the same. The 30 in the current year is because we did the additional appropriation for the hazardous waste day. Town clerk on page 2 stayed the same at 220,100. And if you look at the trends are pretty reasonable. There's nothing out there that tells me we should be changing these numbers. Planning is the same, police is the same, building is the same. Building is one that last year we did 480, but that was a very specific property.
We're gonna do a monster number either at the end of this fiscal year or the beginning of the next one.
If you look at the 2 years before that, the 250 is a pretty reasonable number. One's 255 and one's 254. Those are more expenses.
The gravel pit solar building permit will be at least $500,000.
And then public works is the same, senior services is the same, and park and recs is the same. So with the essentially on the revenue side, including using the 750 from fund balance, our only real change is the grand list growth. At current mill rate is how it's in here for. So the number doesn't quite match. That's what it's at right now. So that's our revenue. But now everybody has 3 years of actuals plus current year to look at if they want to see something or the trend of anything. I guess the only place we could look is taxes, but I'm sure she wouldn't want us changing any of them.
Didn't we change it last year? Was there something we changed last year that she?
Yes, we
Did
went
not
up
agree with-
in motor vehicle stuff.
And how did we do with that? Where are
We did fine.
Right?
So we budgeted 325 and we brought in 352. Current year, we're very high. We're at 426. But of course, that's because the price of cars have gone through the roof.
Right.
Wait till next
If you
year.
can get a car.
Okay. Prior year, we always get more for the prior year taxes and interest and liens. But as you see, over time, they've been decreasing. You know, 3 years ago, we made $585,000 on interest and liens. But that number has been declining.
She's asking whether the fund balance
Remember
contribution.
the fund balance contribution?
It's under mine. See under treasure, use of fund balance.
Okay, there. it
use of that.
is.
It says nothing
And there's no trend.
because we don't actually do,
Yeah, I know we didn't use, I get it.
we don't actually do an entry to use it.
Yep.
What you would see instead in the audit in page 71 and 72 is you would see that the revenues were less than
Right.
the expenditures.
Yep.
And therefore using fund balance. So that is revenues. And, oh, our collection rate is 98.5. I left it the same as it's been.
To approve the revenues?
I don't think so. I don't think you do a motion to approve the revenues, do you?
The fund balance.
Fund
too.
balance, I have to-
Oh, yeah, the use of fund balance.
So I'll move we approve the use of fund balance of $750,000.
There's- Okay, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Great.
Right, I'm gonna make a motion to approve the Board of Education at $25,725,000.
Oh, You're killing me. I thought we were doing this by percentage. Give me a second.
Yeah, you got it.
Percent, or just number?
What's your number? 25?
No,
25 what?
25,725.
Flat?
I'm not doing this pen. 25,725. 25,725.
It's 2.37%.
Back to what you said.
Did we get a second?
No.
I'll second.
That's right, works.
I'll second for discussion.
All right, so this is second for discussion. So right now we're discussing. So discuss on.
I mean, this is close to where I was the other night. It's actually a touch more than where I was the other night. I feel Patrick answered my questions and it's where I feel is a number we can live with to make the budget come out to about where we need to be for the year.
Can you go to the revenue summary?
Yeah, it's 700ths of a mil over.
We'll be going from 34.5 to 34.57.
Any other discussion? Although I didn't feel like we
So-
discussed this.
Can I ask if they had a money that just comes back to our fund, because they can only keep up to 2% of,
Can't
They
keep
keep
anything
anything.
right now. They're at the max of their 2%.
right?
Right now, they're.
Well, they could keep a little
They
bit because
could,
we
yeah,
haven't gained the
because-
2% in the last couple of years, but all they
Right.
can gain is the difference.
Right.
between
So,
what's in
but
there and
anything
what's-
else just comes back to the town, like goes, right? Like,
Yes. But they have every right to spend it however they want,
Correct.
Right.
including sending it over to capital projects if they want to do.
So it doesn't.
But it doesn't necessarily.
It doesn't have
come
to,
back
right,
to
they
the
can
town.
buy supplies, they can pre-purchase supplies, they can't pre-purchase services.
But you can put it over to a CapEx project.
Just checking something.
Don't worry about it. Only, we're good.
How much is sitting in that 2%?
Oh, hold on. I'll get that.
478, 380. Is in the 2% fund.
I just think that number is too high. I just, but the money they returned last year, and I know everything's going up, and it's tough time for all the voters in town too, you know? I just think that's a lot of money that they returned a lot of money last year, and they didn't know where it went, or where it came from. I'm having a hard time with that.
What is the impact, what did we say the impact would be to the taxpayer for going from where we went to?
0.7, 0.07 or 0.7?
0.07.
I know it's 7, yeah, it would go from 34.5 mils to 34.57. With the number we Bill, that Bill just proposed.
It's a 2.4% spending increase and a 0.2% tax increase. That's the grand list, that's the difference.
Anyone?
I support what Bill says. pretty much, completely.
I'd just like to say, especially from what I heard from Randy, that a good percentage of the increases in salaries, we know it's 3-point-something%. It's just salaries. When we look at the new positions that were added, some of the increases for step increases for teachers, I'm feeling that we're cutting too much, but I wouldn't support any more than what we're cutting at this point.
Less than.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Pretty much that's a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
What? What was that? All right, wait a minute. I lost complete. All those in favor?
3-2, yes.
Okay, all right, then the motion passes.
So it was Tom, Bill, and Nicole. Or yes?
No, Tom, Bill, George.
Tom, Bill, George.
L.
Yep.
Are they both?
3-2.
Now. We need to look at the whole budget. and to put
So we
through
need
the
a new
whole
number
budget
on the
with your
bottom.
numbers.
Yep, I just need to see the number.
Need a motion for $42,860,967.
Anybody read that?
I know. 42,960. 42,860, 967. And
You also have to do
your mill rate, right?
mill rate.
What's the mill rate?
The mill rate would be 34.57.
34.57. I move we approve the 2022-2023 East Windsor Town budget at $42,860,967 with a mill rate of 34.57.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right, so now you have to move on to your budget mailer, which is gonna be.
But what you have right now is you have last year. I gave everybody last year's mailer.
Got it.
Obviously, I'll put in the numbers. I am waiting for the board of ed section for theirs, for the 21 actuals, their 22 budgets, and the 23 budgets. We put theirs in gross and then put you guys as a cut on the line right above the total. I'm looking at the third page of the mailer.
Yep.
Well, it's right in front of you on the top side. There we go. Has charts on it. So I think the grand list and the budgets would stay the same, and the verbiage is gonna be just what people asked for and what happened in there at the different levels. And then what you guys approved. If there's anything else you guys wanna specifically see in here, maybe we do a little more about the grand list. I mean, we did do it by 2.3 last year, so this year's number would be 4.3, I think. So, and then the numbers would be just the numbers I put in. We don't have capital projects payment. We don't have a capital project list. We have the whole big list of 1.4.
Oh, yeah, but we won't have it until it gets voted in.
What type of capital project list are you looking for? Those that
We
are
had the
underway or those that are
preliminary
being completed?
recommended, we had the preliminary recommended capital project last year.
So you used the one,
Oh, maybe we did the whole list, because but down below it says the capital committee recommended 1.5 projects, but this amount is significantly more than has been budgeted. I guess that's what I'll do, the list off the CIP. group.
workshop the language of that.
And then this year, we won't have 3 questions. We'll have 2. Because we'll have the Broderick, oh, that's the other motion we need
I was
to do.
gonna
You need
say,
to approve
we approved Broadwood Fires.
no, when do we ever do an approval?
We didn't?
We did a discussion on it, but I don't know that we ever,
So then we do.
we need a motion.
Yep. Oh, I thought we did. I really felt like. Maybe we didn't.
We just said there wasn't much to say because it was 0,
It was 0.
but I don't know that anybody ever made a
You
motion
know,
approving the budget.
sorry, if we have 2 motions, it's still the same motion.
And then the other thing we had in prior years is we had a chart that just summed it. So that if somebody never even opened this from when it came in their mailbox, they would
They would see
see
it at the
the
bottom.
3 years of
Yep.
columns in the, just the totals revenues and the total expenditures. So I think there was a general government in the budget. So I'll probably go back to that now that we don't have the whole referendum question about the debt
Right.
pay down that needs to get taken off there.
All right, cool.
That good for you guys?
Works.
I think it's-
Perfect.
What I'll do is try to put it together so we can approve it Wednesday night. So we are not meeting Monday night. That's the other meeting we have scheduled.
But we don't have to, no.
Right. So I will cancel that one, and Wednesday night we'll do our regular meeting business, but this will be on there. So I can get approval, so I can get it to the printer before I go.
Sounds good.
You guys stop taking vacation time.
I know. I didn't
Has to
see
be
that.
for vacation, because my kids are teachers. I don't get to choose.
All right, so let's make, where is our number? I'd rather make it twice than not make it at all.
I don't think we can do it at all.
Yeah, so better say I'm sorry. though. The number, go ahead. Hey, guys, we're
Yes.
still working here, if you wouldn't
So
mind.
the proposed, right?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's the same one. Oh, and speaking of which, I did do this for you guys. I put it into our format.
Yeah.
For them, but it has the actuals are actually level, you're still in the general fund for the 3 old years, but the current year, 21, 22, and 22, 23 are in their own fund. And that 957, 327 is the correct number.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the Broadbrook Fire Department budget of $957,327.
Okay, any more discussion? All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. We're good, we're good. So we are canceling Monday and we'll be here at 8:00. That's not vacation. It's a Wednesday. All right,
Yeah,
so
next
motion-
Wednesday.
Yep. So motion to adjourn,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
second.
I'll say.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, we're adjourned. Yes.